Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the highly requested, brand new from Primary Arms. This is their Gen 4 SLX, specifically with the ACSS NOVA Reticle. But before we get into the video, if you'd like to help me out, you can, of course, like, share, and subscribe, as that is all free and does help me out quite a bit. On top of that, there's my website, which might have a few things in stock, and there's also Subscribestar, which is basically just a probe to a Patreon. And before we keep going, something that I've forgotten to mention in the last 3 of my videos is that basically every round that you will have seen fired in this video is from Callaway Ballistics. They sent me out some ammunition to test. So far, it has all run flawlessly. On top of that, there is a discount code. I believe it's just Focus or Focustripp or something like that, and it's free shipping on orders of $200 or more. Now, this is their 223 remanufactured ammo, which is a little bit on the softer side. However, it's shot fairly accurately, and so far, again, has been 100% reliable, so go ahead and check them out as a thank you for sending me a bunch of ammo to test and for you guys to enjoy watching. With all that out of the way, full disclosure on this optic is that this was sent out to me by Primary Arms. I have a relationship with them. They send me quite a few products to review for free. I also buy a lot of products on their wholesale side as well because I am a dealer for their optics, so just keep in mind that there is that long-term relationship there. Now, recently there have been a few of their other optics that I have not been particularly fond of. Basically, all of their pistol dots I wasn't a huge fan of. Their new 1:6 classic optic, also not a huge fan of for the price. This, however, is going to be on the opposite side of the spectrum and may just be the best LPVO on the market currently for under $1,000. Now, if you don't like LPVOs, this probably isn't going to do anything for you, but if you do like LPVOs, you like the versatility they can provide, you're okay with the weight penalty, this is going to be a very exceptional optic. So getting into the specifics on just what is the Gen 4 SLX, this is a 10.4-inch long scope coming in at 17.9 ounces, which is definitely on the lighter end of the LPVO spectrum, meaning you don't get too much of a size and weight penalty, though it is still going to be heavier than like red dot plus magnifier, or like an ACOG or something like that. But of course you have that beautiful 1:6 magnification. Now, in terms of the body, it is of course a one-piece 30mm main tube, 24mm objective lens. You have capped windage and elevation. This is in mils, so these are mil turrets in 0.1 mil increments, which is perfectly fine. On the left-hand side, we have our illumination, which we'll get into a little bit later on, but of course you have settings 1 through 11 for your fire optic illumination, or your fiber optic illumination, I should say. Now, moving back from there, we of course have our magnification ring, which now comes included with their throw lever. The throw lever that comes with it is very nice. It is removable, and they are in fact going to have different models in the future. So if you want a taller one, you can put on a taller one, shorter one, so on and so forth. The magnification ring itself is very nicely knurled and machined. At this point, it's been dropped 3 times, and so it is a little bit rougher in the middle, but we'll get to that a little bit later on. Last thing on the body is going to be the diopter for adjusting the reticle to your eyes. Now, getting into the 3 most important things when it comes to actually using an LPVO, that is of course going to be your eye relief, being the distance from the scope and your eye where you get a usable image, the eye box, which is the up, down, left, and right forgiveness of that eye box, or where you can still get a good sight picture through the optic, and the field of view, which is how much can you actually see through it. Now, the first thing is, of course, the eye relief. Eye relief is rated at 4 inches, and of course, optimal is right at about that 4 inches, that you can get quite a bit closer and further away at 1x and still get a very usable sight picture. Hopefully, I'll be rolling in some images and videos of me getting shots off at very, awkward positions. Now, the reason that you're able to do that on this optic is that it also has a very forgiving eye box, again at 1x. So again, the eye box and eye relief at 1x is very good, if not excellent, meaning that it is a very easy scope to use. Now, that does still translate as we go up higher into the magnification range. For instance, at 3x magnification, we still get a very usable sight picture forward and back, and you still get a decent eye box as well, meaning that this, at 3x, is actually a little bit more forgiving than some 3x prisms like the Primary Arms micro prisms and a couple others that I've tested. So even though, yes, the eye box, the eye relief does tighten up as you go higher in the magnification range, it still is comparatively very useful, at least for a scope that isn't quite a bit larger, has a much larger objective lens, that sort of thing. Now, field of view is another very important thing for me because that is basically how much of that magnified image do you actually get. Now, at 1x, the field of view on the Primary Arms SLX Gen 4 Nova is rated at 120 feet. Now, if you know my rating, anything above 100 is good, anything above 110 is very good, and anything at or above 120 would be in the top tier phenomenal. Again, there's only a handful of scopes out there that have anything in the 120 to 125 range, and almost none that have anything above 130. So this is in a very, very good spot when it comes to field of view. Now, while that is nice at 1x, which we will talk about in terms of its 1x look and performance, that is also, of course, going to help you throughout the entire magnification range, meaning that you get more of that magnification at each image. You get more information when you're looking through it at 3, 4, 5, and 6, because, of course, you have that very nice field of view combined with a very forgiving eye box and eye relief. Means that you get a very, very usable image. Now, something that is very important to a lot of people, and for good reason, when they're looking at an LPVO, is how good is that 1x image? Is it actually going to be usable? Is it going to be close to a true 1x approximation? Of course, this is not a true 1x optic because you're looking through a lot of pieces of curved glass and light to get to your eyeball. So it is, again, not like a red dot where you're just seeing a true unmagnified image. You are seeing a representation, but is that representation any good? And to really talk about how good this optic is at 1x, we do need to talk about the illumination. Now, this does come with Primary Arms, the ACSS NOVA Reticle, which is based off of a fiber optic illuminated reticle, meaning that they have basically, I believe it's a long, very thin piece of fiber optic cable on the inside that they then shine a red LED at, which shows up very, very bright. Not as bright as a red dot. In some cases, this will actually be brighter than certain red dots on the market. At 11, it is fire bright, perfect contrast, a perfect representation of where that reticle is pointing at all times. You will never lose it or not be able to pick it up. And on top of that, another benefit of having a fiber optic illumination is that it is not going to bloom out in the same way that a red dot will, a LED-based red dot will. So even at a very high brightness level where you can see it very well, it is just that. It is very bright while retaining much more precision than what you're going to get out of a red dot. For instance, if you turn a red dot up to max brightness, it'll bloom out and start to look pretty terrible. Whereas this optic does bloom out a little bit, but not to the same level that what you're going to get with a red dot whatsoever. And if you turn it down to an appropriate brightness setting, usually I'm using it anywhere from 7 to 10, you get a very, very precise, perfect red dot for you to put on whatever thing you desire. Now, that combined with the 1x image quality, again with that 120 feet field of view, the image quality at 1x is actually very natural. Now, Primary Arms claims that they have a wholly redesigned optical system for this new Gen 4 optic, and from what I can see, it definitely does. You have a tremendous field of view, 120 feet at 1x, and on top of that, the image looks very natural. Now, is it as good as a red dot? No. Is it going to perform like a red dot? No. Does it have the same sort of light transmission, so on and so forth? No. But it is 95 to 99% there. It is a very, very good looking 1x, meaning that for me, the first time I picked it up and used it, I was very happy with it. For instance, the only other optic that really comes close to this in terms of style or performance, it's going to get blown out of the water when it comes to price to performance, but that is going to be the Viper PST Gen 2, which is usually anywhere from like $450 on a super sale all the way up to like $600. That is close to as good as this optic is at 1x, but this is actually going to be a little bit better in my personal opinion, and I have owned 2 of the Vortex Viper PST Gen 2s. This is going to be a little bit better and coming in at a price tag of $340. Now, with how good the 1x performance is combined with the reticle, it's still not going to go head-to-head with a red dot, and I know there are some people out there who don't like LPVOs and say that you can't really use them up close and they're no good for that sort of thing and they're more difficult to use. There are a few circumstances where they are more difficult to use, and even with this, as forgiving as it is still not going to be quite as nice as like a big windowed red dot or something like that. However, usually that's going to come down to a training issue or a personal preference sort of thing. A lot of people don't like LPVOs. Personally, I like LPVOs, so I am biased towards them. And this is certainly not holding me back in any way, shape, or form. I am never going to be able to outrun the performance capabilities of this LPVO, even at close, shredding as fast as I humanly can. Now, getting back to the glass quality and the redesigned optical system that Primary Arms has in this optic, while the 1x performance, again, as I mentioned, is a very good image, it looks very flat, very natural, very little warping, very little distortion, edge to edge, it looks very, very good. The overall glass quality itself is still Chinese glass. It's going to compete with all of those optics. It looks fine. It's bright enough. It's crisp enough. It is certainly nothing special and nothing that's way better than what's currently on the market. In fact, if you do spend more money on like a GLX or something Philippines or Japanese manufactured glass, you are going to get much better glass quality in terms of its light transmission, clarity, look, that sort of stuff. The 1X performance might not be quite as good as some of those other optics because, again, this does look very good, but the overall optical quality here is good while not being particularly special and certainly not going to compete with higher end scopes in terms of just the raw glass quality. Now, of course, there is more to the reticle than just that fiber optic, super bright illuminated center dot. You do, of course, because it is an ACSS reticle, you have auto ranging features built into the mill stadia lines. I believe 18-inch centers, which is like a human shoulder width, down to like 600 yards. You also have moving target leads, I believe 3, 6, and 9 miles an hour on the windage side. And then, of course, you have your drops, which I believe in this case are in 1 mil increments, which if you set up at a specific distance, your zero distance, will translate to 3, 4, 5, and 600 yard drops. Now, as far as the reticle goes, it is very simple while still providing you some good features as well. But again, it's not taking anything away from being extremely fast inside of 0 to 300 yards with that perfectly precise fire bright illumination center dot. So overall, the reticle is very simple, and for me personally, really set up to excel from like 0 to 400 yards. Once you start to get beyond that 400 yard mark, 500, 600 yards, so on and so forth, with just 5, 5, 6, you're going to start to deal with a little bit more wind depending on your circumstances. So having wind holds for me is important at 500 and 600 yards. This reticle is missing that, but it still performs exceptionally well inside of that 400 yard envelope, and you can of course stretch it with some Kentucky windage out to 5, 6, and beyond. Now, in my personal opinion, Primary Arms could absolutely ditch every single chevron and horseshoe reticle design and replace it with the fiber optic illumination in the setter, and then combine that with their mill grids and auto ranging and all those other features, and I would be perfectly happy. If I had this center dot illumination in all of my Primary Arms optics, I would be perfectly happy with that. I wouldn't need the chevron. I don't need the outer horseshoe if you have that perfectly illuminated, very, very fine center dot, which is a fantastic blend of speed and precision. And then give me the mill grids down below for my holdovers, for my longer range shots, auto ranging features, so on and so forth. And again, I would be a very happy camper, though I'm sure Dimitri might dispute that a little bit. Moving on from there into the durability testing that we did on this optic. I've had this on a lot of different guns, currently probably anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 rounds of testing. Basically, every optic that I test gets a double drop test. This one here actually got 3 drops because I filmed another video for the Gun Deals channel, which I do put content up there. If you do want to subscribe to that channel as well, you can of course do that. So I did 1 shoulder height drop for the Gun Deals video, which you guys will have to check out at a later point in time, and I did 2 drops for this video as well. Now, I always start out at 50 yards doing a 5-round control group just to understand where the point of impact actually is. With the Callaway Ballistics 55 grain ammunition that I was using, it was just a little bit high at 50 yards, which is perfectly fine. Then I did a shoulder height drop onto dirt and rocks on the top of the optic, and I got a little bit of point of impact shift. You can see the first 5 were like right here, and the next 5 were like maybe a ½ inch to an inch to the left, so maybe 1 to 2 MOA of shift. Keep in mind that we are in a worn 193 mount. This is a very good mount. Everything is torqued down to spec. 65 inch-pounds on the cross bolts and 25 inch-pounds on the rings. Now, the second drop is usually much harder. This is usually a pass-fail test because most optics will die at the second drop or have a drastic shift in 0, and that is because we do a shoulder height drop onto an AR-500 steel plate. Now, most LPVOs just straight up die at this point. This optic did kind of die. It's like halfway dead at this point, if you will. So on the third drop onto an AR-500 steel target, plunk. No, it bent. Oh, it's dead. Woot. It shifted 0 about 4 inches up and to the left, which is not the worst shift in 0 that I've seen from an optic, but unfortunately, the way that it landed, it actually landed with the rear ocular section first, and it actually somewhat bent up this way, which I have had happen on 2 or 3 other LPVOs at this point. Now, that being said, There was also an internal shift of parallax, which is also something that I've seen. Something on the inside track shifts or breaks a little bit, so the parallax, rather than being set at 100 yards, is at like 500 yards. So if you're not at like a very extended distance, everything looks super blurry when you're at 6x magnification. You can fix that by really bringing out the diopter, but that is not going to, or that is going to make the reticle very blurry, at least to my eyes. So it was kind of dead at that point. However, I was able to re-zero the optic and get it set up into kind of a compromised position. So I had the diopter further out than I would usually have it, but not so far out that the reticle was blurry. So the image at like 3x was crystal clear, but then beyond that it would start to get a little bit blurry. And I was still able to take the optic out to 400 yards with the, semi-broken configuration. So it is still in this configuration usable, though again at 5 and 6x magnification it gets pretty blurry unless you just completely zone out the reticle and you're not going to be using it whatsoever. So the optic kind of died. It passed the first shoulder height drop onto dirt and rocks just fine with very minimal point of impact shift, which I was very happy with. But on the second drop that usually kills most LPVOs, well, it kind of had the same fate as most of them. In fact, I've killed the Athlon 1-10 twice now because I did get it back in for retesting after they warrantied it, and then I broke it again. So again, durability is at least on par, if not a little better than most other budget LPVOs, or most LPVOs in general. It should be noted that even the drops that I did on the much more expensive Vortex Viper PST Gen 2 also had point of impact shifts, and at that time I was not dropping them on AR500 steel targets, so I don't really have a comparison there. But again, most LPVOs, or almost every single LPVO at this point, has some sort of either massive point of impact shift or straight up dies at the AR500 target, or before that in some cases as well. And this one here is no different, so I can't really knock it in comparison to other LPVOs. Is it going to be as durable as a red dot, even just like a decent red dot? Absolutely not. Is it going to be as durable as like a Sig Romeo 8T? Absolutely not. There are going to be much more durable optical solutions out there, and that is one area where basically every LPVO is going to be below, other styles of optics. Now, when we get into the value discussion, again, the only real competitor for the SLX Gen 4 Nova is going to be the Vortex Viper PST Gen 2, and then there are some more expensive scopes as well that are going to provide you similar features, but again, they're going to be another step up in terms of price. And the Vortex PST Gen 2 1-6 is also, again, usually on average at least $100 more expensive, if not $200+ more expensive. On top of that, that optic is 23 ounces. This is 17.9, so you're saving about 6 ounces there. On top of that, this has a better field of view and nearly as good 1x performance. The one advantage that the Vortex Viper PST Gen 2 has is that it is using Philippines glass, which the overall glass quality, the crispness, clarity, light transmission is a little bit better, but that's really the only benefit that it has. Everything else is better on the primary arms version. A better field of view, much lighter, much cheaper, a better reticle as well. Better design in terms of its feature set with the integrated throw lever. So in my personal opinion, for a 0 to 400 yard LPVO, there is absolutely nothing that comes close to this optic in terms of price to performance. If that is where you want to excel at, that 0 to 400 yard range, which I think where this really shines at, for the price, for just the raw performance, for the feature set that you're getting out of it, I don't think there is another optic on the market that comes close. Now, where other optics or other LPVOs specifically will start to edge this guy out is going to be beyond that 400 yards. Like if you have wind holds, if you have 8x, 10x magnification at the top end, you have a different feature set, different reticle set, and so on and so forth, where you're going to be a little bit better suited for those extended ranges. That is where the Nova starts to fall off, and some of those other optics are going to be okay up close, but also still provide a good level of usability out to extended ranges. Again, the Nova is maybe held back a little bit at those extended ranges, but it's really designed to work basically flawlessly inside that 0 to 400 yard mark, which is how I've been using it, and it has, again, been basically flawless, with the caveat that durability is going to be par for the course with LPVOs. So if you're looking for an LPVO currently and you're looking for that 0 to 400 yard range where most of your shooting is going to take place, there really isn't a reason, in my personal opinion, to pick up a different scope than the Nova. I am sure that these are going to sell absolutely crazy. And in fact, I will personally be buying a second one of these. This one here was sent out. It's kind of busted up. And I will personally be buying a second one for my own personal use as well. Because again, I don't think that there is another LPVO that really even comes close to it when you're taking into the consideration its raw performance, very good size and weight, very good 1x performance, fantastic field of view, very good eye relief, eye box. Again, the 1x performance reticle is all very good. And the fact that it comes in at $340, weighing it in under 18 ounces, 10.4 inches long, size and weight's all very good as well. There is very few downsides to this LPVO other than the fact that it is an LPVO. If you don't like LPVOs, I don't think this is going to change your mind about them. However, if you like LPVOs and you're looking to expand your arsenal, I think that this is a fantastic way to go. So, with all that out of the way, guys, let me know what you guys think of the Primary Arms SLX Gen 4 Nova. And with all that out of the way, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. Peace off.